You're 22 years old. Afghan war veteran. Soviet survivor. Unemployed. Peshawar refugee camp. Osama bin Laden offers you $500 monthly. Protect a hero of Islam. Sheikh of the Mujahideen. By 1998, U.S. embassy bombings. 224 dead. You realize you're protecting a terrorist. By September 11, 2001, 3,000 Americans dead. You enabled this. The world is hunting you. May 2, 2011. Abbottabad compound, Pakistan. You hear helicopters. SEAL Team 6. This is the end. You're 22 years old in February 1989, standing in a refugee camp outside Peshawar, Pakistan, watching the last Soviet convoy roll back across the Amu Darya River into Uzbekistan, and you feel nothing. Not victory. Not relief. Not even satisfaction. Just emptiness where 10 years of war should have left something meaningful, some sense that the sacrifice mattered, that the martyrs died for a world that would remember them. But the Soviets are leaving and Afghanistan is rubble, and the Mujahideen commanders who fought together are already splitting into factions, already preparing for the next war, the one against each other, and you're standing in a camp with 50,000 other veterans who have nowhere to go because home doesn't exist anymore. The camp is a city of tents and corrugated metal, mud streets that turn to rivers when it rains, open sewers that smell like death in the summer heat. You share a tent with 7 other fighters, all of them Afghan, all of them veterans of battles whose names you can recite like prayers. Jaji, Jalalabad, Khost, Panjshir Valley. You're Pashtun from Kandahar province, which means nothing now because Kandahar is controlled by warlords who care more about poppy fields than ideology, who traded fighting Soviets for fighting each other the moment the external enemy disappeared. You have $0 in your pocket. No job. No family. They died in a Soviet bombing raid in 1983 when you were 16, which is when you joined the jihad, when you picked up an AK-47 and learned that killing becomes routine if you do it enough times. You're 22 but you feel 50. Your knees hurt from sleeping on frozen ground for years. Your lungs hurt from breathing smoke and dust. Your hands shake sometimes, not from fear but from something else, something the other veterans call the aftermath, which is what happens when your body realizes the war is over but your mind hasn't gotten the message yet. The Pakistani government tolerates the camps but doesn't support them. There's no work, no opportunity, no future. You get 1 meal daily from the UN, rice and lentils, sometimes bread if you're early in line. You've applied for repatriation to Afghanistan, but the country is in civil war, warlords carving up provinces, so repatriation means going back to fight for someone else's poppy fields or joining another faction in another war that means nothing. This is your life. This is what 10 years of jihad earned you. The Soviets left. Afghanistan is free. And you're standing in a refugee camp in Pakistan with no money, no home, no purpose, watching younger men leave for new wars while you wait for nothing. March 1990. A man comes to the camp. His name is Abu Ahmed, and he's recruiting for someone important, though he doesn't say who at first. He walks through the camp asking questions, looking for specific veterans, men who fought in particular battles, men who have particular skills. He asks about you specifically. Kandahari. Speaks Pashto and Arabic. Fought at Jaji. Knows weapons. Survived 10 years. He asks if you want work. You meet in a tea house in Peshawar, outside the camp, which means he has money because tea houses cost money and you haven't been outside the camp in 3 months. Abu Ahmed is maybe 35, well-dressed by Mujahideen standards, clean clothes, trimmed beard, speaks educated Arabic with Egyptian accent. He tells you about a man, a sheikh, a hero of the Afghan jihad who fought at Jaji and Jalalabad, who personally financed Mujahideen operations, who's building something new, something important, something that will continue the struggle. The man's name is Osama bin Laden. You've heard of him. Everyone has. The Saudi who came to Afghanistan in the 1980s, who brought money and Arabs, who built the Khost tunnel complex, who fought alongside Afghans when other Arabs just donated money and left. He's famous among the Mujahideen, not as a commander because he's not a military genius, but as a financier, a true believer, someone who actually showed up. Abu Ahmed says bin Laden needs security. Personal protection. He's moving to Sudan, Khartoum, setting up operations, continuing the work, and he needs men he can trust, men who fought the jihad, men who understand what the struggle means. The pay is $500 monthly. US dollars. Cash. Plus housing, food, everything provided. Your only job is protect the sheik, keep him safe, be his eyes and ears. $500 monthly is more money than you've seen in your entire life. A laborer in Pakistan makes $40 monthly. A skilled worker makes $100. You're being offered 5 times that to do what you already know how to do, which is fight, except instead of fighting you're just standing guard, watching, being alert, keeping one man safe. And that man is a hero of Islam, a mujahid who actually fought instead of just paying others to fight. So protecting him is honorable, is continuing the jihad, is having purpose again. You say yes. What else is there to say? You have nothing. He's offering something. The mathematics are simple. Age 23, April 1990. You fly from Peshawar to Khartoum on a charter flight with 15 other mujahideen, all of them Arab, Egyptians and Saudis and Yemenis, all of them veterans, all of them recruited the same way you were. The flight takes 8 hours. You've never been on a plane before. You spend the entire flight gripping the armrests, convinced you're going to die, which is absurd because you survived 10 years of Soviet bombardment, but somehow a metal tube in the sky feels more dangerous. Khartoum is nothing like Afghanistan. It's hot but different hot, humid instead of dry, the air thick and wet, and the city is functioning, buildings that aren't rubble, streets that aren't cratered, people who aren't armed. Bin Laden's compound is in a residential area, a large house with high walls, guards at the gate, multiple buildings inside the compound. This is where you'll live. This is your new home. You meet Bin Laden on your second day. He's tall, over 6 feet, thin, soft-spoken, speaks Arabic with Saudi accent. He's 33 years old but looks older, beard already graying, and he has this way of speaking where every word feels deliberate, like he's thought about it for 5 minutes before letting it out. He thanks you for coming. Thanks you for your service in Afghanistan. Tells you the work isn't finished, the jihad continues, the enemies of Islam are everywhere, and men like you, true believers, warriors, are necessary for what comes next. Your job is simple. You're part of a rotating security detail, 12 men total, for on duty at any time in 8-hour shifts. You guard the compound gates, patrol the perimeter, accompany Bin Laden when he leaves, which isn't often. You're armed with an AK-47, the same weapon you carried for 10 years in Afghanistan, which makes this feel familiar, makes this feel like you're still doing what you know how to do. The $500 arrives monthly, cash, US dollars, more money than you've ever had. You send $300 to relatives in Pakistan, cousins who survived the war, and you keep $200, which is still more than you need because housing and food are provided. You save it in a metal box under your bed. By the end of the first year you have $2,400 saved, which is 2 years' salary for a Pakistani laborer, which is wealth you've never imagined having. The work is easy. Too easy. You're not fighting. You're not even training. You're just standing, watching, waiting for threats that never come. Sudan is stable. The government is friendly. There are no enemies here. So you stand at the gate for 8 hours and then you sleep and then you stand at the gate again, and the routine is numbing, is boring, is nothing like the intensity of war, but it's also safe and it pays well and you have purpose, even if the purpose is just standing. Age 25, 1992. You've been in Khartoum for 2 years. The security work hasn't changed, but something else has. Bin Laden runs classes, lectures, study sessions for the men in the compound, teaching about Islam, about jihad, about the enemies who threaten the Ummah. You attend because attendance is expected, because part of being in Bin Laden's circle is understanding his ideology, his vision, his interpretation of what the struggle means. The classes are in the evening after your shift, and they last 2 hours. Bin Laden teaches some of them himself, speaks in that careful way he has, explaining that the jihad in Afghanistan was just the beginning, that the real enemies aren't the Soviets who already lost, but the Americans who prop up corrupt regimes, who occupy Muslim lands, who spread their culture and values like poison. He talks about Saudi Arabia, about US troops stationed there since the Gulf War, about how this is desecration, How infidel soldiers on the land of the two holy mosques is intolerable, how this must be resisted. Other teachers are more extreme. Egyptian Islamists, members of groups that assassinated Anwar Sadat, that bombed tourist sites, that declared war on Arab governments they consider apostate. They teach that violence isn't just permitted, it's required, it's fard, religious obligation, and that anyone who stands in the way of implementing true Islamic rule is a legitimate target, soldiers and civilians alike, because they're all part of the same system of oppression. You listen. You absorb. You don't question because questioning isn't part of the culture here, and also because some of what they're saying makes sense to you, makes sense to someone who spent 10 years fighting Soviets and then got abandoned by the same Arab countries that funded the jihad, makes sense to someone who's seen how the world works, how the powerful exploit the weak, how Muslims are dying in Palestine and Bosnia and Kashmir while the West does nothing or actively helps the oppressors. This is how ideology works. It takes your legitimate grievances, your real experiences of injustice and abandonment, and it channels them into a narrative that gives you enemies, gives you purpose, gives you a framework that explains why your life has been suffering and who's responsible and what you can do about it. You're not stupid. You're not brainwashed in the Hollywood sense. You're someone who's lived through things that would radicalize anyone, and now you're in an environment that's validating your anger and giving it direction. Age 28, May 1996. Sudan expels bin Laden under pressure from the United States and Saudi Arabia. He's become too prominent, too controversial, and the Sudanese government decides he's more trouble than he's worth. You move with him to Afghanistan, flying back to the country you left 7 years ago, except Afghanistan has changed. The Taliban control most of the south now, a movement of religious students from madrasas, and they're consolidating power, implementing their version of Islamic law, and they've invited bin Laden because he fought here, because he has money, because they want his support. You settle in Jalalabad first, then move to Kandahar, then finally to Tora Bora, a mountain complex near the Pakistan border, a place you remember from the Soviet war because the mujahideen used these caves as bases, as hospitals, as ammunition depots. Bin Laden has money to renovate, to improve, to turn these caves into a fortress, a place where he can live and plan and operate without being easily found or easily attacked. The security work intensifies. Afghanistan isn't Sudan. Afghanistan is unstable, factional, dangerous. There are warlords who might want to kidnap bin Laden for ransom, tribal disputes that could turn violent, Northern Alliance forces who hate the Taliban and by extension hate anyone the Taliban protect. You're doing actual security work now, not just standing at gates but patrolling mountains, checking vehicles, vetting visitors, running counter-surveillance to make sure nobody's tracking movements. And the ideology intensifies too. Bin Laden is planning something. You can tell because the meetings get longer, more frequent, more secretive. Men arrive from other countries, from Egypt, from Yemen, from Saudi Arabia, men who don't stay in the main compound but in separate caves, men who train in weapons and explosives and tactics. You're not part of the planning, your security, you don't need to know details, but you know something is coming, something bigger than lectures about ideology. Age 31, August 1998. You're in Tora Bora when news arrives. 2 U.S. embassies bombed, one in Kenya and one in Tanzania, same day, coordinated attacks, 224 dead, 5,000 injured. The bombs were huge, truck bombs, and the targets were American diplomatic missions, which means this is war, actual war against the United States, not theoretical struggle but concrete action, violence that kills hundreds. Bin Laden doesn't claim responsibility publicly for 2 weeks, but privately, in the compound, everyone knows. The men who planned it, who executed it, they were here, they trained here, and Bin Laden funded it, organized it, blessed it. You protected the man who ordered the deaths of 224 people. This is the moment. This is when you realize you're not protecting a freedom fighter. You're protecting a terrorist. You think about leaving. You think about it for 3 straight days after the embassy bombings. You could walk out, take your savings, cross into Pakistan, disappear into Peshawar or Karachi, find work as a laborer or a guard or anything that isn't this. But you don't leave. You don't leave for several reasons, and each reason is a bar in a cage you didn't realize you were building around yourself. Reason 1. You know too much. You've been part of bin Laden's inner circle for 8 years. You know locations, know methods, know names and faces of people in the organization. You're valuable as a bodyguard, but you're catastrophically dangerous as a defector. If you leave, if you talk to anyone, if Pakistani intelligence or American intelligence ever get hold of you, you could destroy the entire network. Which means bin Laden can't let you leave alive. Walking out means being hunted, means men you've worked with for years will be ordered to find you and kill you, and they will because that's how this works. Reason 2. Where would you go? Afghanistan is Taliban-controlled. Pakistan is full of intelligence services looking for bin Laden and anyone connected to him. Saudi Arabia won't take you, you're Pashtun and you've been with someone the Saudis consider a traitor. You have no passport, no legal identity in any country, nothing except an AK-47 and $10,000 saved over 8 years. Running means being stateless, means being hunted, means sleeping in different places every night for however long you survive before someone finds you. Reason 3. This is your life now. 8 years is a long time. You're 31. You've spent your entire adult life doing this, first fighting Soviets, then protecting bin Laden. You don't know how to do anything else. You've forgotten how to be normal, how to have a normal job, how to live without violence as the background noise of existence. The skills that keep you alive here, vigilance and paranoia and willingness to kill, those skills make you unemployable everywhere else. And reason 4, the one you don't want to admit, part of you believes. Not all of it, not the killing of 224 people in embassies, but part of the underlying narrative. The West has abandoned Muslims. America does support dictators and occupation and exploitation. Your family died in a Soviet bombing raid funded by superpowers playing chess with Afghan lives, and nobody cared then and nobody cares now. So when bin Laden says the fight continues, when he says someone has to resist, part of you thinks maybe he's right, maybe violence is the only language the powerful understand, maybe 224 dead in embassies will make them pay attention in a way that peaceful protests never would. This is the trap. Not physical bars but psychological ones. Not restraints but dependencies. You're not here because you're being held. You're here because leaving is harder than staying, because the alternatives are worse than the status quo, because you've invested 8 years and you've crossed lines and you've enabled things that can't be undone, and the only way forward is deeper in. Age 33, October 2000. USS Cole, an American destroyer, is bombed in Aden Harbor, Yemen. Suicide attack, small boat filled with explosives, 17 sailors killed, 39 injured. The hole in the ship's hull is 40 feet by 40 feet. Again, bin Laden doesn't claim it immediately, but again, everyone in the compound knows. The men who did it trained here. The plan was developed here. You protected the architect while he designed an attack that killed 17 people. By now you don't think about the victims. This is the empathy off switch fully installed. The first few months after the embassy bombings, you had dreams about the people who died, imagined their last moments, wondered if any of them had families, if any of them were innocent, if any of them deserved this. But the human brain can't sustain that level of moral distress indefinitely. Either you break or you adapt. You adapt by stopping the thoughts, by reclassifying the deaths. They're not people anymore. They're casualties. They're the enemy. They're soldiers in a war, and war has casualties, and you're on one side and they're on the other, and that's all there is to it. This is what 10 years of combat does. This is what ideology does. This is what being trapped in an organization with no exit does. You turn off the part of yourself that feels empathy for the other side because feeling it is unbearable, and you're not allowed to leave and you're not allowed to question, and the only way to maintain sanity is to believe that what you're doing is necessary, is justified, is righteous, is jihad. September 11, 2001, age 34, September 11, 2001. You're in Tora Bora when someone runs out shouting to turn on the television. One tower is on fire. Then, while everyone's watching, a second plane hits the second tower. Not an accident. This is deliberate. And the way everyone in the room is reacting, you realize they knew. The senior people, the ones in closed meetings, they knew this was coming. You watch both towers collapse. You watch the Pentagon burning. 2,977 people dead. That's the final count. 2,977 people who went to work and didn't come home. You protected the man who ordered this. For 11 years, you stood between bin Laden and anyone who might have stopped him. Your job was keep him alive. You succeeded. And the price of your success is thousands of corpses and a world that just changed forever. Age 35 to 44, October 2001 to May 2011. 10 years of running. The Americans invade Afghanistan in October 2001. You live in safe houses in Pakistan, Peshawar, Quetta, tribal areas. You move every few weeks. Never. Sleep same place twice. Check vehicles for GPS trackers. Assume every phone is monitored. Trust no one. You check the sky for drones constantly. You sleep with your AK-47. You wake up at any sound. This is survival programming. Your brain rewired to keep you alive where relaxing for even a moment could mean death. Age 44, 2011. Abbottabad compound. 3-story house, high walls, complete isolation. Bin Laden on 3rd floor. You're still doing security after 21 years. May 2, 2011, 1 a.m. You hear helicopters. Close. American. SEAL Team 6. They come straight in. One helicopter crashes in courtyard. Second lands outside. 25 men in tactical gear, night vision, moving fast. You have 90 seconds to decide. Suicide. Nowhere to go. Surrender? Maybe prison. Maybe death. You drop the AK-47. Hands on head. Face down. You hear gunfire 3rd floor. Multiple shots. Then silence. They bring you outside. Bin Laden's body in helicopter, already dead. Operation took 40 minutes. They killed him, collected intelligence, leaving. You're zip-tied, loaded into helicopter. 21 years of protecting one man. 21 years of enabling 3,218 deaths. And it's over. 40 minutes and it's over. After you're transferred to a black site first. Somewhere in Afghanistan, you think, though they keep you hooded and you never see outside. Interrogations. They want to know everything. Names, locations, plans, networks. You talk. Not immediately, but eventually. What's the point of protecting secrets when the man you were protecting is dead? What's the point of loyalty to an organization that doesn't exist anymore? After 6 months of interrogation, they move you to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Orange jumpsuit, cell block with other high-value detainees, men who worked for Al-Qaeda or Taliban or other groups. You're prisoner 1243. That's your new identity. Not a name. A number. The cell is 6 feet by 8 feet. Concrete floor. Metal bed frame. Sink and toilet combined unit. Fluorescent light that never turns off. This is your new world. You spend 23 hours daily in this cell. 1 hour for exercise in a cage slightly larger than your cell. This is your life now. This is the rest of your life. You're never charged with a crime. You're an unlawful enemy combatant, which means you exist in a legal gray area where normal rules don't apply. No trial. No lawyer. No contact with family. Just interrogations that eventually stop when they've extracted everything useful, and then just time, infinite time, days and months and years bleeding together in a cell that never changes. Age 47, 2014. You've been in Guantanamo for 3 years. The realization hits you during morning prayer, while you're facing Mecca in a cell in Cuba, that you're never leaving. You're going to die here. Not from violence. From age. From time. You're 47 now. In 30 years you'll be 77. Maybe you'll die of a heart attack or cancer or just old age. Maybe they'll keep your body in the cell for a few hours before disposing of it. Maybe no one will know. Maybe you'll just disappear. The skills that got you here are worthless now. Knowing how to fight, how to survive in mountains, how to check for surveillance, how to protect high-value targets. None of it matters in a cell where the door is controlled from outside. You're a weapon that's been disarmed, a tool that's been retired, a threat that's been neutralized. Somewhere in Afghanistan right now, there's a 22-year-old man. He's a veteran of a war that never ended, Because Afghanistan has been at war for 40 years and shows no signs of stopping. He's unemployed. He's living in a camp or a village with no opportunities. His family is dead or displaced or desperate. He has skills that only work in combat and no future in peace. And somewhere, there's a man with money and ideology and purpose, and that man is looking for guards, for believers, for people who feel invisible and abandoned and angry, and he's offering them $500 monthly and a cause and a reason to exist. The offer is the same. The mathematics are the same. The desperation is the same. That 22-year-old is going to say yes. Not because he's evil or stupid or brainwashed. Because the alternative is standing in a refugee camp for the rest of his life waiting for nothing. Because purpose and money and belonging are powerful when you have none of those things. Because the cycle doesn't require the same people. It just requires the same conditions. And the conditions never change. You could warn him. If you could somehow get a message out, if you could somehow communicate from your cell to that 22-year-old in that camp, you could tell him don't do it, don't take the money, don't believe the ideology, don't protect the sheik, because 21 years from now you'll be in a cell in Guantanamo Bay and bin Laden will be dead and 3,218 people will be dead and you'll have nothing except regret and a number instead of a name. But he wouldn't listen. You wouldn't have listened. Nobody listens to warnings about traps they haven't stepped into yet, about consequences that seem theoretical when the immediate problem is hunger and meaninglessness and being invisible in a world that doesn't care if you exist. The system doesn't run on ideology. It doesn't run on evil. It runs on desperation. It runs on the mathematics of having nothing and being offered something. It runs on the gap between what people need to survive and what the world provides. As long as that gap exists, there will be organizations that fill it, that offer purpose and money and belonging in exchange for violence, that turn desperate people into weapons, that perpetuate themselves through the same human vulnerabilities that have existed forever. And the machine keeps running.